Do I hear or am I listening? Hello, my name is Jasmine Gilbert. I'm a graduate student at Liberty University studying human service counseling. Many life experiences forced me into leadership and gave me the comforter counselor role I have today. As I've grown, this role has also become prevalent amongst my friends. To others, I was helpful, provided great insight, and I listened. But in my private life, those efforts failed. Ultimately, I was a hearer, not a listener. Which are you? Everyone reach one, a slogan I heard time and time again as a child, yet have seemed to coin in my own journey. It has always been my sincerest desire to reach others, to help those who have fallen, and to make sure that God gets all the glory. As a human service counselor, I intend to help change the lives of all I encounter. I plan to help others recognize their pains and give them the tools they need to heal. Overall, I hope to draw lost souls to Christ. Our behavioral blends, a compilation of the way we think, feel, and process, model the ways we choose to work with others. How we use and misuse our personalities influence our effectiveness with others. According to my uniquely you profile, I scored as a high ICS. This means I can be both quiet and outgoing, relational and cerebral, and good at both resolving and avoiding conflict. Though I make a great leader because I'm the most personable of all types, I struggle with overanalyzing and allowing others to control me. These characteristics help determine exactly how I communicate. As defined by Stewart 2012, communication is the continuous, complex, collaborative process of nonverbal and verbal meaning making. However, in more simplified terms, we understand communication as the continuous exchange of verbal and nonverbal cues between individuals. Communication occurs almost as often as breathing. In fact, Stewart 2012 coins the terms inhaling and exhaling as it refers to sending and receiving messages in communication. Because of this, communication should also be as smooth, a second nature. However, like me, there are some who struggle with self-disclosure. Openness has two parts: being able to disclose yourself to others and accepting their disclosure to you. Healthy relationships are formulated by self-disclosure. It is necessary for both speaking and listening. Active listening includes empathetic responding using both words and actions. It reduces stress and tension and encourages the building of trust, teamwork, and relationships. For the most part, we all assume that we are pretty good at listening. However, if you're like me, most of us are wrong. The truth is that most people are only listening effectively 25% of the time. However, listening occurs more often than any other component of communication and encompasses 40% of the task. Most individuals just want you to listen. There are 3 levels to listening: empathetic listening, hearing words but not listening, and listening in spurts. Burley Allen 1995 tells us that we perform in each of these levels at some point during the day, but the number one goal is to always perform at level 1. This consists of us refraining from judging the talker by placing ourselves in their shoes. When practicing listening habits, I try to practice good behaviors and not bad ones. For example, when I'm speaking to someone, I can tell by the expressions on their face and body language whether they hear or are interested in what I'm saying. I may not be able to read their minds to know if they are judging me, but I can read what I see. Therefore, I am mindful of this as I listen to others. I also try to stay away from using negative listening styles, such as the faker, the interrupter, and the self-conscious listener, just to name a few. Each of these will make the listening experience more difficult and may leave the talker feeling unaccomplished. Inclusive to our listening styles and techniques, there are also barriers of communication that exist that we must be mindful of. Physical barriers include things such as fatigue, health issues, and anything else that occurs physically within us that may influence our efficiency. There are also semantic barriers that frequently occur, distinguishing our meanings of words through our own beliefs, experiences, and values, contrary to the speaker. I struggled with this severely in college. It didn't make sense to me that others thought different than I did. Wrongfully, I judged them for it. Life taught me quickly just how wrong I was. Spiritual barriers also exist. This includes a difference of beliefs or complete exoneration of the existence or dependence of a higher power. Lastly are our emotional barriers, my biggest feat and most likely a struggle for everyone. These barriers occur when we allow our emotions to influence every other part of our communication. Peterson 2015 calls this the flat brain theory of emotions. In Peterson 2015, He discusses what occurs when our emotions overload and start affecting everything else. Ever gotten so upset with someone during conversation that you completely zoned out, heard nothing they said, and simply listened just to rebut? This was me. Unfortunately, there have been times I allowed my emotions to get the best of me. Peterson 2015 notes that our emotions are in our stomachs. This is where we feel butterflies and our nervous pangs as we enter the first date. The heart is the location of our empathy. It is where we understand that we don't possess the whole truth, but only our truth. Lastly, the head holds our thinking. When we become too emotional, our stomachs overload and enlarge, making our hearts brick-like and our brains flat. The pressure causes these organs to function unnaturally, thus deteriorating our listening capacity. Where two or three are gathered, yes, God said he would be in the midst, but in relation to the flat brain tango, ramifications of the opposite occur. As two individuals who both suffer from the flat brain syndrome communicate, the flat brain tango begins. Both parties are speaking at each other, but nothing is heard. Emotions heighten and nothing gets accomplished for either party. Peterson 2015 explains this as a war between countries, a constant back and forth of battle. Due to unresolved pain and turmoil, this was a dance of choice between my mother and I for a very long time. Certain things could not be discussed before we both escalated into a rage of words. However, we can all overcome. James Peterson's text, Why Don't We Listen Better, is an excellent tool for improving our listening skills. Before reading the text, I was convinced that listening to others was one of my better qualities. Little did I know, in some of my relationships, I had been suffering from the flat brain syndrome. Peterson 2015 explained listening and made understanding it a very relational concept. Without this text, my communication would not be as improved as it is. The Bible is another great tool to help with communication. As we learn more about him, we learn more about ourselves and others. This allows us to better relate and show much empathy. Lastly, prayer is communication itself. The more we communicate with God, the easier it should be for us to communicate with each other, those we see every day. My faith is the foundation of my life. It guides my decision making, the relationships I build, and my day-to-day activities. God is my coping mechanism. In a study conducted on marriage couples involving their coping mechanisms through life transitions, researchers found that for couples who rely on their spirituality for their coping showed more positive outcomes. Relying on God truly does work. I have assembled 5 quick tips that I found most influential to communication with others throughout this course. Number 1, O equals SAT. This formula refers to becoming more comfortable with self-disclosure. Simply put, openness equals self-awareness, self-acceptance, and trust. Second is acknowledgement. Peterson 2015 listed this as his first listening technique, most likely because it is the most important. Before effective listening can take place, we must first acknowledge that it's okay for the speaker to talk to us. This is done through our tone, our body language, and our facial expressions. Instead of repeating what you have heard, a blend of your own opinion and some of what the speaker said, repeating back to them verbatim what was stated so they may also hear what they are saying is repeating accurately. This is my third tip. Fourth, we must alternate between our feelings and our thoughts. One amazing concept that I learned during this course was that our feelings are non-debatable emotions and should be treated as such, whereas our thoughts are the complete opposite. By alternating between the two, we don't get hung up on either, and we help establish the difference between the two. And lastly, we should avoid listening blocks. In 2017, an article developed by the Psychiatric Rehabilitation Journal, professors highlighted several listening blocks discovered during research and counseling. These include rehearsing or practicing responses while listening, filtering out only what you want to hear, and advising when advice is unwanted. The tools I have gained through this course, I plan to share. In fact, the sharing has already begun. I now realize how often ineffective listening is most likely occurring, but I also realize how limited the tips and instruction to fix it is to the public. It is my goal to start small and grow big, to sit down with family and friends, first to help them improve their communication, then move into the church, perhaps amongst the marriage ministry, and lastly, these concepts will follow me into my career. I will lay the foundation of improving relationships and habits by improving communication. Since the beginning of time, God has honored companionship. Even after the birth of his most precious creation, he realized that something was still missing. It is God's desire that we take care of one another. In fact, Scripture emphasizes the importance of loving one another just as much as we love Him. How can we do this if we cannot effectively communicate? I'm grateful for the experience of this course. I learned my own attributes and pitfalls with communication. Now I am equipped. I will continue to spread the word and share with others so that we may develop as a better people, communicators, and most importantly, as Christians. Thank you.